My sister banned me from Thanksgiving to impress her boyfriend. So I cut her tuition and quietly watched her perfect world collapse. My name is Donna. I'm 32 years old, living in Portland, and I own a small residential HVAC maintenance company. The job isn't glamorous, no high-rise offices or designer suits, but it's something I built from the ground up after nearly a decade of tireless work. I'm proud of it, even if not everyone in my family feels the same. It happened this Thanksgiving, a day that should have been whole, but instead became the moment I realized my true place in the hearts of those I thought were closest. I had just finished a long maintenance job, leaving the client's house as the sky turned dusky. Driving home, I felt at ease. The business was closed for the holiday. All my employees had received their bonuses, and I had picked up a bottle of red wine from a high-end shop to bring to the family dinner. Ever since my dad passed away, every Thanksgiving, my mom cooked a big feast, and everyone showed up. I had never missed a single year. Brr. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. Ellen, I answered, still smiling. Hi, Mom, I'm on my way home. Do you want me to bring apple pie or mashed potatoes this year? There was a strangely long silence on the other end. Then she spoke, her voice a little shaky. Donna, there's something I want to tell you, and I hope you'll understand. I frowned. What is it, Mom? I think maybe this year you shouldn't come to Thanksgiving. My foot nearly slipped off the gas pedal. What? It's just that Mason, Brittany's boyfriend, is bringing his parents over. They work in law, very traditional types. Brittany wants everything to feel a bit more formal. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my heart pounding. You mean I'm not allowed to come? I'm not family? Brr, that's not what I mean, Donna. Of course you're family, it's just that Brittany feels you might give the wrong impression. What I mean is because I'm an HVAC tech? Because I didn't go to an Ivy League school? I cut her off, my voice already trembling. Donna, don't make this more difficult, she sighed, her voice softening in that way I'd grown too familiar with, the tone she used when she was about to say something unforgivable but still expected me to swallow it without complaint. I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. Do you remember who paid Brittany's tuition? I paid for all 4 years while she was in school in New York, never missed a deadline. I gave her a future I never had. Mom went silent. Then she said weakly, It's just one evening, Donna. We can see each other another time. Maybe a brunch. I hung up. I didn't cry. I just sat in my car, hands still on the wheel, feeling hollow, as if someone had torn out a part of me I didn't even know I'd been holding on to. An hour later, while I was sitting quietly in my apartment, a text from my cousin Madison popped up. I thought you should know. Brittany told her mom you embarrass her. She doesn't want her boyfriend's family knowing someone in her house works with their hands. I read that line over and over. My grip on the phone was so tight my fingertips left marks on the screen. Brittany, the same sister who once called me her hero when I gave her her first laptop at 18. The same girl I walked 3 snowy blocks for just to get rent money to her on time. Now she was ashamed of me. And I knew tonight, when everyone was sitting around the dinner table toasting, laughing, no one would mention me, no one would save me a seat, no one would notice I wasn't there because in their eyes I never really was. The next morning, the early winter sun slipped through the kitchen window like nothing had happened. I sat alone with a cold cup of coffee, the phone lying silently on the wooden table. I should have been prepping a pie, picking out a dress, getting ready to laugh with my family like every other year, but this year all I felt was empty. I scrolled through social media without thinking. Then, like a punch to the gut, I saw the photo, posted by none other than Brittany. She stood in the center of Mom's living room, wearing a bright red dress, hand in hand with Mason. The dining table behind them was perfectly set. Fresh flowers, lit candles, everything flawless. The caption read, "A warm Thanksgiving with the ones who matter most." Brr. I wasn't in the picture. Not a word about me. Not a question about where I was. Just as I put my coffee down, my phone buzzed again. It was Madison, my cousin, the only one in the family who still called me for reasons other than favors. You okay? Her first message read. I hadn't replied yet when the next one came. I think you need to hear this, even if it hurts. Brittany told everyone you shouldn't come because she doesn't want her boyfriend's family to know she comes from a working-class background. She said, if Donna shows up, they'll think we live in a garage. Brr, I froze. I read it over, hoping I'd misunderstood or that Madison was joking in some cruel way. But I knew Madison wasn't like that. And deep down, I knew it sounded exactly like something Brittany would say. This wasn't the first time she had acted distant about my work. I once visited her dorm in her sophomore year, wearing my dusty work uniform after finishing a job nearby, and she quickly pulled me into a corner, whispering, "Can you change shirts? Everyone here's in law school. It just looks weird." I let it go. I always let it go. I thought she was just young and embarrassed. I thought she'd grow out of it and realize a person's worth isn't measured by the starch in their collar. But I was wrong. I'd been wrong from the start. I had paid Brittany's Columbia tuition since the moment she stepped onto campus. Each semester cost over $18,000. I worked overtime, skipped vacations, turned down personal days just to make sure she never had to worry about tuition, books, or housing. I never asked for a thank you. I didn't need Christmas cards. I just thought if I helped her build a good life, at the very least, I'd be welcome at the family table. But in Brittany's eyes, I wasn't someone to be introduced. I wasn't someone who mattered. Brower. I closed my phone, heart pounding, anger, shame, heartbreak, disappointment, all swirled inside me like a storm with no way out. I stepped outside, watching the cars pass under a gray sky, and I understood. What hurt wasn't that I wasn't invited, it was being erased by someone I loved with everything I had. In that strange, quiet moment, I knew I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't keep living as the one who was always dismissed. I couldn't be the only one holding on to bonds that were one-sided. I went back inside, sat at my desk, and opened the folder labeled Brittany's Tuition Private. The line read, "Next payment due in 14 days, $18,740. I moved my cursor to remove payment method. A warning popped up. "Are you sure you want to remove your payment method? This action cannot be undone." I didn't hesitate. I clicked confirm. A soft click echoed as I closed the laptop, but inside me it sounded like the latch of a door finally shutting for good. The next morning, when the clock struck 7 a.m., I was already seated at my desk, a steaming cup of tea next to my laptop, which was open to the Columbia University login page. I entered my email and password. As always, the message, "Welcome back, Donna C." popped up. The tuition payment section was clearly displayed, spring term balance due, $18,740. Payment due in 14 days. And every time I'd sigh, at this time, my fingers weren't shaky or hesitant. I moved the cursor to the button labeled Remove Payment Method. A small pop-up appeared. "Are you sure you want to remove your account information? This action cannot be undone." I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then clicked Confirm. A small ping sounded, and just like that, it was over. Ibra. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone started vibrating. The first call was from Mom. Before I could pick up, another call came in, this time from Brittany. Both went straight to voicemail. I knew they wouldn't stop. I switched my phone to silent and got back to work. By noon, I was checking the HVAC system at Quinn and Harris law offices when my phone lit up non-stop. A quick glance, 8 missed calls, 14 unread texts. I knew I should have ignored them. But then one message from Brittany made me pause. "What did you just do?" "The school said my tuition's unpaid. Your account disappeared. Call me back now." Right after that came a message from Mom. "Donna, you can't be this cruel to your sister. You know she has no one else but you." I stood frozen in the client's reception room, the clipboard in my hand suddenly cold. A chill ran down my spine. Not from the air conditioning, but from the realization that in Mom's eyes, I was just the only option to keep her daughter from failing. Not her daughter, not someone who'd worked her hands raw for 10 years, just a walking wallet. That afternoon, as I drove home, Mom's 13th call came through. I sighed and answered. Her voice immediately burst through, tense. "Donna, you can't just walk away like this. Do you know how panicked Brittany is right now?" I kept my hands steady on the wheel, voice calm. "I know, and I think she should be panicking." "Abra, don't you think this is too harsh?" Mom continued, voice cracking with anger. "She's in her final year. What if she gets kicked out?" I let out a short laugh. "Mom, Brittany's old enough to understand the consequences of her actions. She's an adult, not a child I need to carry. You promised you'd help her until she graduated." I paused for a second. "I promised to help my sister, but the Brittany you're defending today?" That's not someone who sees me as family. I'm not obligated to keep enabling ingratitude. Abraham's mom went silent. Then, as always, she softened her tone, layering it with guilt. You're the only one in this family who can help. Are you really going to abandon your family? I bit my lip, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Family isn't made up of people who only call when they need a withdrawal. Family doesn't shut you out of dinner just because your job isn't refined enough. I'm not an endless ATM, Mom. A long sigh, then her usual closing line, "You've changed." I smiled bitterly. No, Mom, I've just finally started living as myself. I ended the call that night. I lay in bed, staring at the white ceiling, letting the silence wrap around me. No more ringing phone, no desperate texts, no guilt trips. Then a soft ding. A new message from Brittany. "Donna, I can't believe you did this to me. I've lost everything. Hope you're happy with your decision." I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't respond. Because if Brittany truly believed I destroyed her life with a single click, then maybe she never realized it was she who started destroying everything in the first place. I don't know what happened after Brittany's last message because for the next 3 days, my phone stayed completely silent. No calls from Mom, no texts from distant relatives. Everything was quiet, and a year ago I might have cried from the emptiness, but now the silence felt like a rare gift. No expectations, no blame, no more playing the role of the selfless sister. I was reviewing technical documents at the office when Madison called. "Have you heard?" Her voice came through, hushed and urgent. "Heard what?" I asked, though my gut already knew. "Brittany showed up at Jordan's house this morning." I frowned. "Jordan? Brittany's boyfriend?" "No, ex-boyfriend now," Madison said, her tone low and deliberate. I sat upright. "What do you mean?" Madison took a deep breath. "Mason broke up with her. He moved out of the apartment this morning. Someone saw Brittany crying in Jordan's yard for nearly an hour." I stayed silent. For the first time in weeks, I was genuinely shocked. You know why?" Madison continued. "Mason told his mom that Brittany lied about who paid her tuition. He thought her parents were covering all of Columbia's costs. When he found out it was you, her sister, he was speechless." A chill ran down my spine. Not from joy, not from vindication, but from the realization that Brittany hadn't just erased me from her life. She had replaced me with a version of reality where I didn't exist, just to fit into a world she thought she deserved more. "How long did she lie to Mason?" I asked. "Almost 2 years," Madison said hesitantly. "Mason said he felt like he'd been pulled into a long play where the lead character was never real." That afternoon, I received an email from Columbia's student office. "Please note the primary payment method has been removed from Brittany Calloway's student account. Her financial status is currently unresolved. Please update a valid payment method by January 10th to avoid withdrawal from the university." I didn't forward it, didn't call Mom, didn't inform Brittany. I just skimmed the message and closed my screen. But sure enough, Brittany reached out to Mason. They met that evening at a familiar cafe in the Belmont district. I wasn't there, but Madison knew someone who worked at the place, and word spread like wildfire. Mason was already there when she showed up 15 minutes late, Madison recounted, her voice a mix of pity and unease. She wore a silk dress, full makeup, like she was trying to salvage the last image of perfection. And? I asked. Mason didn't let her say much. He asked her straight up, "Why didn't you tell me the truth about Donna?" I pictured the scene, Brittany's face going stiff, her hands twisting together under the table. She told him she was embarrassed, that she didn't want him to think she was taking advantage, that her family situation was complicated, and she just wanted to keep up a good image in front of Mason's parents. I wasn't surprised. That was the kind of language Brittany always used. Subtle, evasive, shifting blame while still sounding innocent. But Mason didn't buy it, Madison continued. He told her, "If you're mature enough to build a future for yourself, you should be mature enough to be grateful to the one who gave you that opportunity." I stayed silent. My heart ached, though I couldn't tell if it was for Brittany or because, for the first time, someone outside the family said what I never dared to ask for. Mason added, "One more thing," Madison finished. "I can't love someone who's ashamed of their own family because if today it's your sister, tomorrow it might be me." I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. Brittany had lost her tuition, now she had lost her relationship, And the saddest part was, she still didn't understand why everything was falling apart. 3 days after that last call with Madison, I received a second email from Columbia. This is your final notice. If tuition is not paid by the January 10th deadline, student Brittany Calloway will be automatically withdrawn from the spring semester enrollment. Please address this immediately to avoid disruption to academic progress. I read that line 3 times but felt nothing. Not anymore. I had given Brittany more chances than anyone ever had, and all she did was turn me into something to be hidden behind silk curtains. That night, Brittany called 6 times in a row. I didn't pick up. Her messages poured in. I know I messed up. I was just scared of being judged. You can't do this to me. I'll lose everything. Do you not love me anymore? Were all those years just fake? If I get kicked out, my future is over, Donna. I didn't reply. After the 10th call, I blocked her number. 2 days later, she used a different number to call again. When I blocked that too, the messages moved to email, Instagram, even LinkedIn. The last one read, "If you don't answer, I'll come find you." And sure enough, Brittany did the one thing no one thought she would ever dare to do. On Monday morning, while I was in a meeting with my tech team about a new HVAC contract for a coastal hotel chain, the glass door to the office flew open so hard the security chime went off. I looked up. Brittany stood in the doorway, hair messy, mascara streaked from crying, her heels caked in mud. "I need to talk to my sister," she shouted, freezing everyone in the room. I stood up, my gaze cold as steel. "This is a place of business, Brittany. You don't get to cause a scene here. You're ruining my life," Brittany shrieked, her voice full of desperation. "You can't just cut me off like nothing happened." Before I could respond, security was already moving toward her, firm-voiced. "Ma'am, we need you to leave the building now. Don't touch me," Brittany snapped, her eyes wild. "I'm the sister of the woman who runs this place." I stepped forward, calm and steady. "You're the sister of the person who runs this place, not the one running it. You don't have the right to disrupt my work because you refuse to face the consequences of your own actions. You're abandoning me," she yelled one last time. But no one reacted. No sympathetic glances, no nods of agreement, just the cold silence and her heavy footsteps as security escorted her out. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. "Mom," I hesitated, then answered. "Donna, what happened this morning? Brittany called me, said she was kicked out of your office. She's humiliated." I said nothing, sipping my water slowly. "Do you know what it'll mean if she gets expelled?" Mom went on, her voice breaking. "I know," I answered firmly. "And I think she needs to learn how to take responsibility. Families don't turn their backs on each other like this," she snapped. "You're her sister." I set my glass down, my voice steady. "I was her sister, but to her I've only ever been a tool. When I stopped paying, I stopped being family. Donna, I'm begging you." I cut her off. I didn't work myself to the bone for 10 years just to be labeled a shame. "You should call the bank or learn to say no like I did." I hung up. The next day, Aunt Carol called. Then Uncle Jeff, even a high school friend I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade, messaged me. "Donna, is it true your sister might get expelled? People are saying you went too far." I didn't respond. I didn't need to because, for the first time in my life, I was certain of one thing: I was no longer a walking wallet. And I had learned that love cannot exist where there is exploitation. Not anymore. In the weeks following the office incident, I expected to be dragged into a never-ending battle with my family. And it came, just as I'd predicted. Late-night calls, relentless texts, all wrapped in those 2 words, blood ties. "You're too cold. She's still your sister. Donna, people are saying you've changed. You don't care about family anymore." Words that in the past might have brought me to tears. But now, I simply put the phone down on my desk, looked out the window at the pine trees swaying in the late-year wind, and let myself be quiet. No more defending, no more apologizing. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. One morning in mid-December, as I was reviewing ventilation plans for a new shopping center project, Madison texted, "Just saw your mom at the grocery store. She said Brittany dropped out and moved back home." Honestly, they both looked rough. I stopped typing. My eyes lingered on the message. "She also said she still thinks it's your fault." I wasn't surprised. To my mom, accountability was always something that could be reassigned, and I was usually the one it got assigned to. Brittany failing because she couldn't face reality? Irrelevant. What mattered was that I dared to walk away. But instead of feeling sad, I felt relief, because while they were still stuck in that loop of blame and denial, I was starting a new chapter in my life. With the money I used to spend on Brittany's tuition, I expanded my company, hired 2 certified technicians, upgraded to new carbon monoxide testing equipment, and even redesigned the office in a modern, neutral-toned palette. I also accepted a 3-year maintenance contract with a chain of coffee shops in the Pearl District, 6 figures. Now I work not out of fear of lacking, but because I truly love what I do. No one makes me feel less than for not wearing a corporate name badge. No one asks, "So when are you switching to a real job?" No one sighs when I say I run my own technical crew. And most importantly, no one treats me like I'm invisible. On Christmas Eve, I sat alone on the couch, my moss green sweater wrapped around a tired body after a long day. Outside the window, neighbors' lights blinked in and out, and the sound of church bells echoed faintly in the distance. I poured myself a glass of white wine, planning to watch a feel-good comedy before bed. Then my phone lit up. It was a message from Mom. "Donna, Christmas just isn't the same without you. Everyone misses you. Call me." I don't know how long I stared at that message. Maybe just a few seconds, or maybe it was a whole lifetime folded into a single moment. I thought of all the Christmases past. I was always the one who brought the little tree, who wrapped everyone's gifts, who paid for dinner with money I could have spent caring for myself. But no matter what I did, I was always not presentable enough around company. Abru. I took a deep breath and gently deleted the message. Not because I didn't miss them, not because I never loved my family, but because, for the first time, I had learned to love myself more than people who never truly valued me. I don't expect Brittany to change. I don't expect my mother to apologize. I only hope that from now on I can live a life where I don't need permission just to exist. A few weeks after Christmas, as Portland welcomed the first cold, damp rains of the new year, I received a handwritten letter from someone I least expected. My grandmother, Evelyn Calloway. She hadn't lived with our family in years. After Grandpa passed, she moved to a small house in the suburbs of Salem, nearly a 3-hour drive away. I only visited her a few times a year during the holidays, but she had always been the one person in the family who never judged me for my career or lifestyle. All she ever asked was that I show up with a smile and the same calloused hands that built everything I had. The letter was written neatly, her handwriting slanted like the gentle tone of her voice. "My dear Donna, I don't know exactly what's happened in the family lately, but I know this. When a woman like you finds the courage to set boundaries, many people will feel uncomfortable. Don't let that stop you. Who among them has ever sacrificed for you the way you have for them? I am proud of you, not because of the money you make or the contracts you sign, but because you have learned to protect your own heart." I read that letter 3 times. Amid all the blame and guilt, she was the only one who saw me fully without needing an explanation. And I realized maybe she was the first person who made me believe that choosing myself isn't a betrayal. I used to believe that family was unbreakable, that if I gave enough they'd eventually love me, accept me, be proud of me, but I was wrong. Because no one is obligated to love you if all they've ever learned is how to take, and you are not obligated to sacrifice yourself just because someone shares your last name. I spent too many years living as though my worth was measured by how much I could give. Every tuition payment, every expensive birthday gift, every vacation I canceled to work more hours. I used to think those were acts of love. But the truth is, love doesn't ask you to hide who you are. Love doesn't make you feel ashamed of the job that feeds you. It doesn't require you to step back just so someone else can shine. If someone expects you to do that, it's not love. It's control, dressed up as family. I no longer feel guilty for staying silent when Mom texts. I no longer feel torn when relatives call me stubborn or cold. And I don't dream of Brittany showing up at my door with tears in her eyes, hugging me, saying she was wrong. I don't need that anymore. I've learned how to hold myself, stand firm in the storm of opinions, and to say clearly I wasn't born to be a backdrop in someone else's story. If you're in a situation like mine, where you give, and all you get back is silence, judgment, or indifference, here's what I want you to remember. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It's an act of courage. Choosing dignity over dysfunction doesn't make you a bad person. In fact, it means you've grown. It means you finally know your worth. Brf. I don't know if Brittany will ever learn that lesson. I don't know if my mother ever stop running from accountability. But I do know this. I will never go back to who I used to be. The one who quietly paid the bills but never got a seat at the table, the one who always did everything right but was still treated like a shame. And finally, I chose myself, not to get revenge, but to finally live. Donna's story is a powerful reminder that family cannot survive without respect and recognition. In a world where people often judge by appearance or status, she found the strength to draw the line and choose herself, not out of spite, but from self-worth. She shows us that love doesn't mean blind sacrifice. Saying enough to being used is the first step to reclaiming your value and living a life that's free, worthy, and empowered. Donna's decision to set boundaries and prioritize her self-worth was not only justified but also an act of profound courage. For years, she sacrificed her time, energy, and financial resources to support her sister Brittany, only to be met with ingratitude and exclusion. The moment she was uninvited to Thanksgiving because her job as an HVAC technician was deemed embarrassing by her sister was a painful but clarifying revelation. It exposed the transactional nature of her family's expectations. Donna was valued only for what she could provide, not for who she was. By choosing to stop paying Brittany's tuition and refusing to tolerate further disrespect, Donna reclaimed her dignity. This wasn't about revenge. It was about self-preservation and recognizing that love should not come at the cost of her identity or self-respect. Her grandmother's letter beautifully affirmed this, reminding her that setting boundaries is a sign of strength, not selfishness. Donna's story highlights a universal truth. True family is built on mutual respect, not exploitation. Her decision also had ripple effects, forcing Brittany to confront the consequences of her actions and exposing the flaws in her mother's enabling behavior. While it's sad that Brittany faced academic and personal setbacks, those were the natural outcomes of her choices, not Donna's cruelty. Donna's strength in walking away from a toxic dynamic allowed her to redirect her resources toward her own growth, expanding her business, hiring new staff, and finding fulfillment in her work. Ultimately, Donna's story is a testament to the power of self-worth. She was right to put herself first, not because she stopped loving her family, but because she started loving herself enough to demand respect. Her journey encourages anyone in a similar situation to recognize that saying no to being used is not a betrayal. It's an affirmation of your own value.